Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Promo Perspectives podcast presented by Sage, dedicated to giving promotional products, suppliers, and distributors tips, tricks, and insights to help them grow their business. We have been on a series talking about social media, specifically related to Sage's place on the 2025 PPAI Online 18 list. One of the reasons we got such a prestigious placement on that list was because of the incredibly high-quality video content that we produce on our channels. So in the last episode, we began our conversation with our producer, Lafonso Brown, talked about some of the philosophies behind videography, and today we're diving into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty, the process and workflow of production. Lafonso, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Gabe. I'm happy to be here, and I love talking about video, so let's get into it.
Let's get into it. And, again, you're on this side of the camera, which is a little unusual for you.
It is. This is like probably in my lifetime the most I've been on this side of the camera, so it's very rare.
Well, so like I said, last time you were here, we talked about kind of like the philosophies, like how you can watch movies to determine how you frame shots and how you elicit emotion with cameras and things like that. But I think something that a lot of our audience wants to know is, what is the actual process like of producing video content? And I know we do a handful of different kinds of productions, so why don't you pick one or two examples, and we'll start with pre-production. What is the pre-production process like?
Ooh, okay. So we've done a lot of really great videos lately, and there's so many options to choose from. But I will go with one that was sort of the first of its kind. And we created this video about a year ago, maybe closer to 2 now, actually, for email campaigns. And this video, it was a very unique process. So the pre-production started actually with a brainstorming session. We got together, we sat down, we talked about ways that we can show this product. And one of the things that we wanted to get across in the video is that it saves you so much time, and it would usually take so many people to get this thing done. What if we created a video that showed one person wearing all of these different hats and talking about the steps that it would take to create this email? And we juxtapose that with the fact that Sage does it all for you. So I think that the pre-production process for that one, it started mostly with a brainstorm or a concept, like a lot of them do. And then you wrote the script. You wrote all the parts, all the dialogue, all of the characters. You even starred in this one, but that's more in the production phase of things. And from there, we take the script, storyboard it out, get an idea for what it's going to look like before we actually dive in. And the beauty of pre-production is you can almost predict how your production is going to go. You can have a schedule that's pretty spot on. You can know sort of the challenges you're going to encounter. For this one, some of these challenges included, we were going to shoot green screen. We wanted to have you playing multiple characters, having a dialogue with yourself throughout this entire beginning of this video. And we wanted to be able to change the background, and change the location, the feel of it, and all of that. And so green screen was key to make that happen. And another part of the scripting, pre-production process, and storyboarding, we realized that we wanted to have a montage of our Sage rep in this video speeding away from the office because he just couldn't get through to all of these hard-headed people trying to discuss this email process. And instead, he goes right to the source. He drives over there, and he tells them, Sage can do that, essentially. And we wanted that part of the video to be driven heavily by sound design. So you will hear the sound of keys, the sound of an ignition turning on, the sound of tires squealing. And we learned all of those things just through the scripting and the pre-production process.
So you were able to kind of have a plan for the actual filming day, not just show up with cameras and a script, but show up with, a shot list.
Exactly. And so if you do your pre-production correctly, then the entire rest of the process gets very easy. One of the things that a lot of people dread in video is fix it in post. So sure, we could have shot it somewhere else without the green screen, and then we could have spent all the time it takes to cut out a person and then replace the background. And we're talking keying out a background for green screen, like minutes. Cutting out a person from a different setting and putting them in another setting, we're talking hours, if not days. And you can learn that you can save that time just if you have good pre-production.
So can you tell me what goes into a shot list? Like, I know a lot of people have probably seen pictures of like a Hollywood storyboard where it's literal frames illustrated. Are you doing that, or how are you outlining these ahead of time?
Oh, good question. So it's a combination of things, depending on the type of story. For this one in particular, I wanted to know what I wanted my framing to look like. I wanted to know how I wanted the platform to feel. I needed spacing because we were going to have like a pseudo kind of a Zoom environment for you as the actor pretending to be all of these roles. And so I wanted to know like my focal length for my shots, which one I liked the best, how the layout was going to be on the screen. And outside of the green screen studio part, the on location stuff, I also wanted to have an idea of like how close I wanted the shot of the keys to be when you twirl them in your hand, or the angle for the ignition. Because, I mean, if you think about it, when you're creating a video, the camera could literally be anywhere, and you can zoom literally any amount. And so to drill those ideas down, it's better to do it in the storyboarding process versus being in the field and not knowing and second guessing and trying to figure it out. If you storyboard it correctly, then it is like a movie storyboard. You know exactly what the shot's going to look like, where it's going to be in the sequence, and how they're going to fit together just because you storyboard the whole thing out. So granted, when I do storyboards, if there is motion or blocking, I typically have two drawn squares, and I'll connect them to show the shot's going to start here and it's going to end here. And so even if there is motion in the storyboard, you can also visually see that too. So for something like that, I think that the storyboard it's essentially you translate those drawings into video for this particular video. Some storyboards are a little bit different. Some of them, if it's for something with animation, maybe we're doing something with websites or email campaigns, and those have a different dimension than other things. And I also want to get an idea of what that motion will look like too. So a lot of the times the storyboard is so that I can see what I'm going to create versus having that. Many writers have probably experienced the blinking cursor effect, where you look and anything's possible, and you can get that same kind of a thing in video. And the storyboard negates that entire blinking cursor kind of thing.
And I assume it's helpful then to have a script as like the starting point, and then the visualization of the ending point, and then you can kind of just bring those together into that shot list.
Yeah. So the script is the first thing. Well, after the concept, after you know what you want to do, the script lets you know how the characters are going to behave. It gives you an idea of the setting. It gives you an idea of like the time of day, of the environment, of the wardrobe, like everything that you see visually. The script sort of hints at that. And so a script can be a double-edged sword because sometimes scripts are so good that they're really hard to capture in video. And then sometimes scripts leave opportunity for you to show and not tell. And it's a really, it's a balancing act. And I think that's where you have, where the relationship between the scriptwriter and the video creator is key, because you're almost in each other's heads. And I know when you say something, what you mean, and I know how to show that in the way that you see it, because as you're writing the script, or any writer's writing the script, I assume that they have an idea of what they want to see to some degree. And it's up to the video creator to make that idea a reality.
Well, and the longer you work with a person, the more you can kind of get an idea of what's in their head too. And so the other thing is that example that we're talking about is for filming. It was like a commercial that had like it was like a fictional story that we were telling with characters, like something out of a book or a movie. But a lot of people in this industry will produce something more like when we produce the supplier ads for like Sage Conference, right? So like if you've ever attended one of Sage's online events, we'll have advertisements from our sponsors that roll in between the sessions, and sometimes they'll make them themselves, but a lot of times, especially if they're local, you'll go out and film those. And so some people might think, well, then that's just me showing off my warehouse or my production area, and I don't necessarily need a script for that. But even then, when we went and filmed one here in Arlington, we had a shot list, right? Like, we knew we wanted to show these parts of this person's facility, and they knew they wanted it in this order, and that made it a much simpler day than if we'd just shown up with the camera equipment. And, well, maybe not only just simpler that day, but then you didn't have to go home and start editing and being like, oh, we got to go back next week because I need a shot of their screen printer or something.
Exactly. And these are different kinds of videos. I would call that one more of a documentary style video. I'm not sure if that's like the technical term, so don't quote me on that, but it's a video where you interview a person and you have B-roll, you overlay B-roll on top of the interview. For that process, you're right, there is an idea, but it's sort of more free-flowing. So essentially, if you're doing a video like that, if you're a supplier and you're talking to your customers and you want to tell them about your products, your services, your process, that kind of thing, then it's really important for you to come across as natural and as an expert and genuine. And so for a video like that, it's not so much scripted as it is it's about the questions that you're asking and the message that you want to deliver. And so I'll walk you through a little bit of that process. Typically, for a video like that, the questions are, we spend a lot of time thinking about them. Usually, some common questions are, what is your mission? What are your top selling products? What do you want your customers to know about you and your company? And you take those answers, which are very free-flowing, and in post-production, that's where a lot of the story comes together for that type of shoot. So if we're sticking with, I'm going to sort of tie in pre-production and post-production in this process. So essentially, the pre-production is the questions. It's getting an idea of what you're going to want to show based on those questions, what the possible answers could be. And then a lot of the magic for that kind of a story does happen in post-production, where you're finding the best answers and what answers connect together, and you're telling a story without the questions, because a lot of the times you don't put the questions in these kind of videos, and so you have to tell a complete story that makes sense and is clear, and it gets the message about that company and what they want to accomplish and what their mission is and what their goals are and what they want you to know about them. You have to do all of that without those questions being involved. And so the post-production process for something like that it's some of my favorite to do, because a lot of the times you only have an idea of what it's going to look like. And when you sit down to edit, it comes together and you find a story that you didn't even know existed.
So let's move on a little bit ahead in the process then to production. So I think with both examples, the one where we were filming like our commercial that was like a story and a skit, and then the example of filming these more documentary, getting B-roll and interview style, those still, I think, have a lot of crossover in the production side of things in terms of equipment you're bringing into the field, how you're setting up that equipment and using it during the day, and what you're doing with it at the end of the day. So can you kind of walk through that process for camera, audio, and lighting?
Ooh, okay. So production that's when you start sweating. Like physically you start sweating because you're moving around, you're carrying heavy stuff. So the production process, a lot of the times it's a good idea to have a schedule and to have an idea of how long shots are going to take. Production can be time consuming. There's a lot of moving parts. Sometimes there's blocking where you have people in different positions. That's where you get the wardrobe involved and you have to sort of pick what you want to wear. The lights, the cameras, the tripods, everything it takes, the audio equipment. So your production process and the things that you use will typically depend on what you're trying to achieve. Is there any particular one that you would like to know? Any particular video that you would like me to talk you through the?
Let's do two. Let's talk about the video we've been talking about, the Sage Email Campaigns video, and then let's talk about what we were doing on the Expo floor this year.
Ooh, okay. So for the email campaign video, We knew that we wanted to do green screen, and so we set up in the studio. In the studio, we did. We had 2 key lights. Well, we had a key and a fill light at the front. The key light is the brighter light, and the fill light just adds a little bit of extra light so one side of your face isn't completely in shadow. And when you're using green screens, you have to light the background as smoothly as possible. And so we had a backlight to separate you from the green screen to make the keying process easier. And then we had, I don't know if it was 2 or 4 lights on the green screen itself. I know that sounds like a lot of equipment. It kind of is, but when you do this like as your job, it's sort of like the part of the process. So when we shot those, we had wardrobe changes and in between. And one of the tricky things about the production of this is that your characters were going to be talking to each other. And so we had to time how long it would take for one character to say a line and for the other character to either react or respond. And there were 6 of you. And so it got really complicated really fast. But yeah, and so for that, we used 1 camera, tons of lights. And when we went into the field, we did some things in our old parking lot. You volunteered your car, so your car was a star in our video as well. And for that, we used a lot of natural light. And because it was very heavily driven with audio and it was mostly just me and you on set, we shot the shots from our shot list with the close-up of the keys and the ignition and the car driving away. And then we went back and recreated those, the sounds for that sequence with a shotgun microphone and a portable audio recorder. And so we filmed the video first, and then we went back and we recorded all the audio for everything separately. And in editing, we stitched the visuals with the audio. And a lot of the times, if you have the manpower, you can have 2 people. You can have a person filming, and simultaneously you can have a person recording. But because we were just a 2-man show on that day, we did them separately. In a process, it's called double system. So it's where your camera's not also capturing your audio. You sort of sync them up. And then after that, we had 1 more location, which was in an office. And that shot was really tricky because you were coming into the office, one of your characters, and you were talking to the manager and essentially saying, Sage can do that for you. And so we shot a sequence of you as the manager at the desk, and then we shot you also coming into the office. But what made this tricky is that there was a window, and the window reflected the light and it reflected the microphone, and it was what I ended up doing is I actually had you come in a specific way so that in post I could physically cut out the window and then replace it. Yeah, so it was a fun day. The production on that was really fun. I think the entire video took us a couple of hours maybe with all the setup changes and all of that stuff and the costume changes. And it was actually really, really fun.
Oh, yeah.
And we sweat. We got a little,
Now, at Expo, so that whole example, like you said, we had a very specific shot list for that commercial. And we were able to kind of execute the shots, record the sound effects, and then you take everything in and edit it. When we were at Expo, we were much more documentary style run and gun. And how did that process differ?
So when we're at Expo, because it's like an event and it's really only happening for those few days, you want to make sure that you get as much as possible. And so one of the things that I like to do is overshoot. I shoot way more than I will ever need. I try and shoot things that are interesting and things that are unique. And because Expo reoccurs, I like to slightly change it up and shoot things differently. I remember one year in particular, I was really obsessed with these speed ramps where you have people walking at normal speed, like a regular video, and then you speed it up. And so I would do like camera motions that were designed for a person to be moving at normal speed, and then you like speed it up and whip the camera around them, and then you slow it down again. And so I would shoot with that in mind. For this last Expo, we did a lot of product shots, a lot of interviews, and essentially you overshoot and you shoot in sequences. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have you're filming tumblers in a booth. You want a wide shot, like an establishing shot, to sort of show the booth, and then you want a medium shot to show the product surrounded by other products, and then you want at least a close-up to show how the logo or the print or the metalwork or how everything looks on the cup. And essentially, you can cut those 3 shots together in a way that creates a sequence and tells a story. And so if you're shooting, even if you're shooting for coverage and because it's an event and it'll be over, you want to shoot in a way that you can edit and tell the story in post also.
So, and then once you've gotten all of this, so, you're collecting this footage on your SD cards throughout the day, and then it's time to go home and edit. So let's move on to the post-production process. Tell me about what softwares are you using for both video production and photography, which is kind of an offshoot we haven't talked too much about in these episodes, but you do like our company headshots here, you do some event photography when we have it. What are the softwares involved and the workflow for these projects in post-production?
Post-production is where you have probably the most flexibility. There's a whole bunch of different software out there. What we use is the Creative Suite from Adobe. And I'll just sort of list some of the programs I use. I use Photoshop a lot, mostly for photography stuff, but it is also involved in some of our videos, if you can believe it. I use Bridge, Adobe Bridge, which is sort of like a file explorer or finder on a Mac. And it allows you to rename in different file types, and it gives you a thumbnail on almost every single file, which is not the case in Finder and File Explorer. I use Adobe Premiere for anything that involves footage. It's really good to use that to edit footage together. I use Adobe After Effects. After Effects is for the animations and anything that involves motion graphics or sometimes images. I use Adobe Audition, and that's where a lot of the audio editing happens. And on any instance, almost all of those programs are in play. So for the video, for the email campaign video, one of the things that I would start with for that is we collect all the footage from the day, and I plug it all in. I organize my folders, and I open Adobe Bridge, and I rename all the files, because a lot of the times the cameras spit out like the file name that's unique to them, but it tells you nothing. So I rename all of my audio and video files and images and all of that stuff that happens in Bridge. And for the email campaign video, next the editing happens in Premiere. So I do all of the footage editing. I line all of your characters for that shot, and I edit the talking, all of that stuff that we timed together. And then from there, once that part is done, I go into After Effects with that footage. I remove the backgrounds on all of those shots, and then I replace them. And after that, sometimes the audio's also in that process, and sometimes the audio's next. For this particular video, the audio and the video editing happened simultaneously. That video also had a really heavy animated sequence at the end that showed the email campaigns in action. And it also had a voiceover, which happened in post as well. And then I tied all of that together. It probably sounds tedious. It probably sounds long and like cumbersome, but it's what it takes to make really, really good videos. There are faster ways, there are easier ways, but this is the way that you have the most control, the most creative freedom to do the things that you want to do.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's a lot of work, but I think anything worth recognizing is, right? And, you brought up an interesting point there, too, which was, the animations and the screen recordings and the motion graphics, because I think, honestly, maybe, I don't know if it'd be the majority, but a large percentage of the videos that Sage produces do not involve a camera. Right?
That is true.
Because we are a software company, and people might not realize how much work actually goes into creating those, because it's not just, first of all, let's take it way back to the pre-production process. It's a little easier than we're not like lining up dialogue and shots, just the voiceover. You know, you come up with, you said, like, we have our concepting meetings where we talk about what is the marketing message here, what are the pain points being solved, and how do we vocalize that. We write that into a script, and, you know, when I write those scripts, the shot will say, show this part of the email campaign, show this part of Sage Workplace. But when you're going in, you're not just like recording your desktop and clicking on the things. Like, if you go back, audience, and you look at some of the videos that explore our products, like our marketing videos for these features, the ways it zooms in on a part of the screen and the mouse moves and clicks and gets a little bigger and smaller as it clicks. Like, these are not things that are actually happening on your computer. You are animating, which is really, it's like a mix of production and post-production, right?
Yeah, you could consider it a mix. A lot of the times, even though the animations are usually still images that are we add motion to, we collect those images. Sometimes we go in and we change logos and we do other things to make the video exactly how we want it to be. And that's where Photoshop comes in for some of that image editing too. But yeah, a lot of that, it's a combination of understanding the motion, knowing what you want to achieve. And one of the things that really helps if you're making an animated video and you're, especially for us as a software company, and you want to show the products and you want to have the motion all involved, is you want almost like a through animation, like a through line that connects your animation style. So if you watch some of our videos, one of the things you'll see is that usually the transitions are the same in any one particular video, and the transitions sort of tie the entire piece together, or some of the zoom effects are the same. And depending on the video, we'll determine what those transitions and those zoom effects are. Sometimes we do it for energy, and we want to be more like this is cool, like check this out, you want to see this, and you add that energy in the motion. And then sometimes it's a little more heartfelt, where you're doing something with like hand sanitizer or face masks and that kind of thing, and you want it to be slower and you want more sweeping motions versus fast, like energetic poppy motions. And so you sort of use the same effects that you would do in a typical pre-production setting, but you do them through motion graphics instead.
So just to kind of recap the whole process here, right? Because it is, I know that when I got into AV, I didn't think about process because I was in high school, right? And it was the first time they let us have cameras, and they're just teaching us the fundamentals, and it was almost a game. How can we run around this high school and shoot fun things, and then what can we salvage from whatever we happen to get? And don't get me wrong, some very funny skits or things that we love to do then came out of that process, but to get the kind of high quality end product that we were recognized for, it takes this whole process. It takes rigorous planning, you know, the experience you have to make sure the production process goes smoothly, and then very technical expertise in this software and this editing workflow to create these kinds of things.
Yeah, and one of the things, like, you can do it on any level. It's important to know what your message is and what you want to do, which is where your concepting meeting comes in. It's important to know what you want to say, which is where your script comes in. The visuals and the audio and the lighting that's like the meat and potatoes. That's the thing that everybody's going to see. And so you can use your phone camera if that's all you have, or whatever equipment you can scrounge up. In editing, there's many softwares out there. There's some that are budget friendly, and for the most part, they have similar features. And so you can do this process on any level, but what I would like for people to take away is that the process itself is important. And if you want to tell a really good story, then it's important not to miss one of those key steps, because it could really impact your final result.
I think that's a great kind of takeaway to wrap up the episode. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we take it home?
No, I think that's it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks again for coming on. You know, welcome to this side of the camera. You know, if you, even just this podcast that we do, where there isn't a ton of literally moving parts in any given episode, it only looks the way that it does because of the philosophies and expertise that you and Taylor, you know, your team have put together. So I hope, audience, that you have learned an interesting thing or two in these last couple of episodes, kind of peek behind the curtain. Stay tuned. We have one more episode coming out on social media. We're going to be joined by Jenna from HPG. She's somebody who's also placed on the PPAI Online 18 list a handful of times. So we're going to talk about her strategies and her philosophies. And then the next few episodes, we're going to be talking about digital marketing. So stay tuned. Go ahead and subscribe to Promo Perspectives anywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you next time. Thank you for coming on the show, Lafonso.
Thanks.